Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, and today we are working on the Legendary Stories box for the story keyword. Well, really the Red Library keyword more than the story keyword, but anyways. There are three models in this box. There is the Legend of Thanh, which is not any artwork on the front. There is the Legend of Sun Wukong, which is here, and then the Legend of Raijin, which is here. Now, if we look at the back of the box, we've got three renders. Story of Thanh, sorry, Story of, not Legend of, my bad. Is here, the Story of Raijin, and the Story of Sun Wukong. So we'll be starting on the Story of Thanh, and yeah, we'll just move on to Raijin and then Sun Wukong. Here's our sprue of the world's most violent 3-year-olds. Some extra bits from Raijin that we're going to ignore. We're going to start from the base and work our way up. So we're going to grab the book, jam the two halves of the horse on it, then jam the legs on the horse, of course, then slap the kid on top of the horse along with his extra leg, his spear arm, his cape on top of that, and his head, and then just an extra little bit that I think goes in like the horse's nose or something like that. We'll figure that out because that's obviously the one piece I'm not entirely sure where it goes yet. Already starting out kind of wrong on my assembly order. We're going to grab I1 first and combine it with I10, the other half of the horse, before we add it to the book. Here we are with both combined. Now add them to I2, the book. There's only one real way it can go on. Just make sure you line up the bits, and you should be set. Next up is going to be I3 and I4, our horse hoofsies. Here is the right hoofsy, and this is the left hoofsy. So I3 is the right, I4 is left. We're just going to fit in these little sockets to see at the side. I3. And now we're going to work on Thanh himself. We have I7, his body, and then I8, his leg. And I've put enough horse riders together to know that it's probably safer to put the body on, or the saddle, I guess, first, and then attach the leg later. So that's what we're going to do. Start with I7. Alright, we're looking at I7, the body, and this unfortunately placed part right here is the connection point for the horse. That is a gnat on my go. So yeah, that's where he'll be connecting. And he'll connect to right here on the horse. Oh, also, you can actually see the outline of the leg. Whoops. So it goes down this way. There you are, I7. Next is I8, the other leg, and we can also see the outline of where it's supposed to fit. There's I8 attached. Someday I'd finally make this mistake on a recording, but I touched a bit with glue on my fingies, which is why his thigh is a little gross now. The reason I was doing that is because when I put the right leg, well, the left leg, sorry, when I put the left leg on, there was a bit of a gap between it and the body of the model, I7, so I put a little bit more glue there and I squeezed them together. And then I realized that I was mushing the detail on the thigh, so I stopped before I could really get that gap filled. But that's why. My bad. Next we'll do the cape, which is I6. I6 is going to attach along here and sort of complete this ring of the neck hole. And obviously we'll not be touching the paper flowing out of the book. There we are. That's what the neck hole now looks like. Next up is going to be I5, the right arm. I5 attached. This is the angle I feel is probably the closest to what it's supposed to be. It's not quite touching the cape in my connection, but might be able to brace it up against that, and it'll still look fine. Next up is the head, which is I9. Looking at the head, I'm holding it by the hair, just to let you know that weird little ridge is supposed to be there. The bottom of the neck should not be flat. This will help it connect correctly. There he is, a smug little toddler. His head is tilted ever so slightly towards his right arm, but he's just not quite looking straight. Definitely not looking to either side, really. Wiggle my camera. There we go. The last bit, I-11, is fire shooting out of the nose of the metal horse. With that statement, it's fairly obvious it is going to connect to both the nostrils, but also there is this groove right in the nose as well of the horse, and it will connect there as well. So relatively solid connection. But let's look at the orientation. Here's our teeny tiny little bit, and here is going to be the left nostril, here is going to be the right nostril, and that groove in the center will sort of be this part of the flame. But you can see that the wider ends are where it connects the nostrils, and the smaller, more close together ends is the flame shooting up. That's sort of your orientation for you. There it is attached. Fairly solid connection. It almost attaches to the rest of the face, but not quite. From the profile view, but probably the one you want to see is the one that's not in the render, which is on this side. But there you go, all done. We've got it. The Story of Thanh completed. The hardest part was really actually trimming the flash on the parts of the horses. That was somewhat difficult to work around without cutting into parts. But it's kind of hard to explain. If you put it together, you'll kind of know what I mean. But yeah, the screw up on the thigh was just a big whoopsie on my part. And the nose flames actually weren't that hard to figure out where to go or put in. So trimming up the horse was the hardest part. Thank you, Weird, for providing some Vietnamese models and mythology for this game. I'm real happy that we can showcase more of the international parts of the models. Moving on to the Story of Raijin. We are up to the Story of Raijin, a Japanese folk tale, or more specifically, I guess, a god. I'm not sure if there's any specific tales about him or not. So we went from Vietnam to Japan, and we're looking at an oddly split sprue. The only ones we're concerned about on this sprue is the Circle of Drums and his body. The rest is the Monkey King. You ignore him for now. And then the remainder of the sprue we had from Thanh is going to be the rest of the tinier bits of Raijin. But we're going to go ahead and grab the body from the other part of the sprue, put the sash on, and then combine the right arm, which is this bit and this effect, put that on, do the left arm, the head, and then jam the circle of drums on his back. Here we have J7, the body, and we're going to attach J5, the sash. It'll connect here to the center of his belt, as well as these grooves on either thigh. There it is attached. Next is the right arm, which will be J1 and J2 combined. We'll show you how to combine those next. Okay, this is J2. We're going to attach J1 right here on the sort of wrist. You can see the connection point. Anyways, camera's having a hard time really focusing on this bit. Anyways, the magical effect, it will attach there, and then it'll just be sort of flowing over the wrist towards the back of the hand. It's not a good explanation, but look at the render and just look at how I attach it. It generally helps if I don't pull my camera straight down, but here's the wrist, or the hand, J1 and J2 combined. Yeah, there we go, that's a little better. That's the connection you're looking for. Now let's add it to the body. Also want you to get this angle right. The render is your best friend right now, making sure that it is looking correct. Now let's do the right arm. Thankfully, it is all in one piece. This is J4. There's the left arm attached. No complaints to say about it. It went in real nice. Very solid. Next will be the head. J3. Another really solid connection. No complaints on this one. As long as you're pointing the head in the right direction, it should be very easy to go in. Lastly are the drums. Back over to the one other sprue with the Monkey King on it, J6, and that's going to connect to flip them over right there on the thigh. Now the connection point might not be obvious at first, but you can see in the ridge we've got two dots kind of sunk in there, so we're going to look for that on the bit. Lo and behold, we've got ourselves two dots. let's assemble it. And there we be. We've completed the Story of Raijin. You remember the little drummer boy, right? Well, this is him now. Feel old yet? Shitty jokes aside, the only hard part was the right arm. I mean, it was pretty difficult for me. I'm not saying you're going to have the same issues I did, but just getting that magical effect to stick was a bit of a pain. So just be careful with that and make sure stuff is cured before you continue attaching it to other bits. Moving on to the Story of Sun Wukong. If you've heard of any of these stories, you've heard of this one. This is the Story of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, from Journey to the West, I believe. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and grab the body, and then we're just going to attach all the limbs. So the left arm, the right arm, and staff. I think this is the right leg, and I just realized his arm is attached. So this is the left leg. Whoops, my bad. He's got the hand feet the monkeys do. So sue me. Once that's all attached, we're going to go ahead and put this special effect on the foot that's touching the ground, and then attach the tail and the book to the tail, and at some point we'll put the head on. Start with K1, the body. Then we'll do the legs first. I feel it's going to be slightly easier if we don't have the right arm on there. So we'll do K4, the right leg. Left leg. The groove is really obvious and secure, so I felt like I didn't need to show you how it was attached, but here's what you're looking at for the leg. Now we're going to move on to K3, the right leg. This one's going to slide around a little more than the other one, so just a reminder that this tooth goes in this slot. Just make sure it's solid, no gaps, and the point of it is he's supposed to be walking on this foot. Here it is attached, and I guess a helpful hint is that there's like no real overflow of the pants on this side of the kneecap thing, but if you turn it over here, there's this nice big overflow, so the knee is kind of pointing outwards instead of straight ahead. There you go. Next, we'll move on to finally get the right arm there, which I believe is K2. Huzzah, another easy connection. And I'm really glad I did legs first. So let's go ahead and slap the head on, because we can, and that is K5, I think? K5. There's a stupid, smug expression. And a friendly reminder to make sure stuff cures, because if you rush like I do, you'll knock over his right leg. And then when you're trying to put that back on, you'll knock his head off. So there's the neck connection. It's going to kind of be jutting forward compared to a normal human neck. Now let's get that swooshy bit on his foot. K8. No, we're not. As far as I can tell, that bit is only connected to the sort of thumb, I guess, on his foot, which means we're going to attach it once he's already attached to the base. Let's move on to the tail, K7. But make sure you trim up this part on top here, because you want this to vaguely come to a point, because the connection vaguely comes to a point. Attach. There it is attached. And second to last is going to be the book, which is attached to his tail. That is K6. And it's going to attach on the end there. And let me give you a better look. Here's our book. And again, the render is our friend. If you look at it, you'll notice that the bookmark is going to be pointed up on this. And you see the very obvious notch in there, which is our connection point. And sadly, it's difficult to see, but that notch corresponds to this tooth right here on the tail. There it is attached. It doesn't have a really solid way of getting the angle 100% correct on the book compared to the tail. I just squeezed between my thumbnail and my X-Acto knife and kind of wiggled it so it got into a pretty solid spot, but that's where I'm at. Really, that connection point is the only part is connected to the book, as the book and the tail is connected as far as I can tell, but if you want to make it more solid, you can definitely glue it to the other parts of the tail just to make sure it doesn't like rip off or anything. Let's get him on a base. Our last bit, this magical effect that attaches to the foot. Now, normally Weird makes these things to be a little bit more solid of an attachment to a base. They used to do like models that would just be on their toes before, and they're fixing that. But I couldn't figure out how exactly it was helping in this instance, but I think I've got it. So first up, this notch right here, that is going to attach to the thumb on his foot. But we're also concerned about this little extra bit here on the end. Here we are, attached to a base, and yeah, this is the thumb I was talking about. That's where that notch is going to attach, but I think this is where it helps support him. You see how he's touching the base, but his like fingernails or the tips of his finger toes are raised up. I'm pretty sure that extra bit, that small spike on the magical effect, actually slides under there and acts as an extra connection. And I dry fitted it and looks like it's the same with the render, so let's do it that way. So I think that works. It's not the most supportive, but it's at least helping his fingies stay on the base. I would suggest for anyone that's assembling this to attach him to the base and put this on before you do the right arm, because obviously that staff is going to get in the way. Maybe even before you do the tail. Just so that those things aren't making it more difficult for you to connect these two pieces. We've completed the Story of Sun Wukong. Probably the hardest model in this box. Yeah, just a lot of small pieces and the whole foot magical effect thing and the book attaching to the tail. This is the hardest one, surprisingly enough. I thought it was going to be Thanh Yong, but nope, this guy. Best of luck with him. Hopefully this video will be helpful. There we have it. All finished with the Legendary Stories box. The Story of Thanh Yong, the Story of Raijin, and the Story of Sun Wukong. The Asshole King. Yeah, the hardest part was definitely Sun Wukong. Like, I had trouble with the left arm of Raijin. The right arm of Raijin. Yeah, the right arm of the Raijin. And maybe a few bits with the kid on the horse. But the Monkey King is going to give you the hardest time. But that being said, aren't these some gorgeous models? Thank you again, Weird, for sending this to me, and I hope this was helpful to all y'all watching. Have the best of luck with your models, and good night.